Can you answer like what caused the extinction of the dinosaurs? Was it really an asteroid impact?
Certainly natural course. Yes, there were asteroid impacts, but many of those were caused by members of the Earth Federation, for instance. Not always being so nice as you might consider this, yes.
Hmm.
Also, of course, there were some exploration of people on Earth already living alongside the dinosaurs of a more humanoid nature that were coming in conflict with those, and many from outside were taking more interest in primitive hominids, yes, and therefore wanting to evolve them further, therefore engaging in warfare not just with the Empire to a certain degree, but finally employing an attack. Again, not necessarily nuking everything, but more in the idea of using natural forces to steer meteorites in.
I see. So like the asteroid that hit in Mexico, like 65 million years ago, are you saying that was sent by the Airy Fairy Galactic Federation?
Not literally, directly, but yes, certain events and cataclysms were directly manipulated in order to cause this, similar way your Illuminati are using your HARP technology to manipulate the weather. So it's not like the meteorite was fired from a spaceship or something like this, but a stellar object was caused to steer its course and then send off those fragments that were entering your atmosphere. But there are other cataclysms such as a flood that also occurred, also due to meteorites hitting certain levels of sea, earthquakes, etc.
I see. Okay, on a slightly different topic, having to do with dinosaurs. I wanted to learn like some more about like dinosaurs, in general when they existed on the surface, like more than 65 million years ago. Um, did velociraptors have feathers like many people believe, or were they hairless like in Jurassic Park?
It's not as slightly different as you might imagine, because some of those are still underground, including the descendants of the what you consider velociraptors from your archaeological interpretation. Some of those have evolved to another creature that still lives inside their planet. And yes, some of them are feathery.
Did they really have a form of like verbal communication like in that clip from Jurassic Park 3 that I asked David to watch?
More advanced than that. But similar, yes. It has evolved over time. It's more evolved now than it was million what you're considering years ago.
Were they really intelligent pack hunters the way the Jurassic Park movies portray them?
Not what you consider like wolves, but it's perhaps closer to what you than your movie clip. Closer to wolves.
Okay. Um, so like you talked about like, some dinosaurs survive inside the earth. Are there big dinosaurs like brachiosaurs and stegosauruses?
From what we're observing, not the idea of a brachiosaurus. Not quite that big, but some are similar, a little smaller. They've also evolved in different direction. Much higher evolved than you were back then. Some are on your intelligence level, or not quite. More like the hominids that exist on your Earth without extra what you consider terrestrial interference on a similar level. Some are more sophisticated or more on your level.
Are there triceratops down there?
Yes, but smaller.
Cool. Would it be possible, like, for me or anybody to astral project, like, down to these areas to see dinosaurs, so to speak?
Yes, certainly.
Cool. I'll try to do that then. Um,
Obviously. Yes. Many have done so.
is it dangerous? Like, is something gonna trap me down there?
Not unless you're fearing such an event happening. Going there physically might be very dangerous without anybody considering guide. But when you're just astral projecting, if you're shielding yourself, you can project anywhere, and if you can get inside, you can be what you consider safe. And of course, if you're getting inside anyway, without what you consider protection, then you won't even be in the situation. So it's unlikely that you would get in danger. The inside of your planet is not really that dangerous. Again, unless you're attempting to go there physically.
Awesome.
Do you know when the extinction event of the dinosaurs really happened? Was it 65 million years ago, roughly, like we believe?
It was rather somewhat later, right?
Okay.
From where the end of the Cretaceous period, yes. There was also around that time when there were the last what you consider surface-faring bigger dinosaurs that went what you call extinct. Others were around, some were left on the surface that were similar to the nature that you might not consider dinosaurs. And yes, Harris monkeys lived alongside dinosaurs we mentioned during that period.
Right, so like when the asteroid hit in Mexico, was that about 65 million years ago?
From what we're aware.
Okay.
Were dinosaurs warm-blooded or cold-blooded?
Depends, some others. We're for the most part cold-blooded, a lot of reptiles are. However, some were what you consider warm or hot-blooded. A minority.
I see. Did modern birds evolve from dinosaurs?
Timelines and evolutions are somewhat different from what you are experiencing. Yes? So, what you consider dinosaurs or birds are mere descriptions of particular plot lines, genetically and energetic frequency modulations that resulted in the physical existence of those species. And from a timeline perspective, you can see what you consider an evolution from reptile to bird, or from bird to reptile in the realm of creation, depends what timeline you're looking on. From your own scientific explorations, could be stated in the sense that certain frequencies and genetic manifestations you'll find as reptilian, or a dinosaur in this particular case, evolved into something more of a bird nature, but in other instances, bird-like beings devolved or evolved, depending on what perspective you're looking, from a more reptilian nature, such as ours and including theirs. So it was a big and first manifestation. But definitely there's a genetic link up, that's obvious. Yes?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, another question. Do you know why dinosaurs like Triceratops and Stegosauruses had horns and spikes? I mean, did they fight with them?
Yes, obviously they fought with them. The same way, for example, your bulls have horns. It's a very common occurrence of those physical manifestations in different races and species, and even more some higher level reptiles, for example, have spikes of some sorts. Or, example, our backplates, of course, also can be used in such a similar term, even though it's rarely the case. However, many of those producer horns, for example, especially our symbol, as you can see, yes, are also put forward in the sense because of a genetic resemblance in the royal lines. So very often when you find horns, they are also a resemblance of something like power in a reptilian kind. But obviously a third dimensional being or a creature has a different self-identity than those that define things symbolically. It's a more practical sense, nature.
Right. Okay, cool, interesting. Now, Metax had mentioned that the Pangea continent broke up only 500,000 years ago, not 200 million years ago, like we believe. So, like, when dinosaurs rolled on the surface, was the land all just one big continent?
In the addition of certain continents has sunk since then, yes? That you're well aware of, that you're not including your scientific analysis of Pangea, which were still a part of it.
Right, right.
There were several shifts when you consider land mass, including various pole shifts.
Yeah, I mean, I know obviously like the dinosaurs lived for several, well, many millions of years. So like, did the land break up and reform during that time?
Numerous times.
Okay. Um, Now another question: are there any flying reptiles like pteranodons that are still alive inside the Earth?
Correct. Those certainly, as well as our land roaming or sea creatures down there. But among the flying ones, there's definitely a creature that's genetically close enough to the pteranodon.
What about T-Rexes?
Certainly also much smaller than those that roam the surface.
And what about Stegosauruses? Any of those?
Yes, almost exactly like the one that existed on the surface. In the particular timeline that you're aware of as we're looking for a word in vessels by your English language. We find only the local definition.
Okay.
Anyway,
All
you're
right.
aware of the certain depiction from your scientific archaeologists, and that's why those are still very common down there. Not necessarily with the spikes, however, on the tail that you previously brought up.
Okay. Now, when the asteroid hit, did it create what we call a nuclear winter, where smoke and dust filled the sky for several years?
There are various catastrophes, not just the meteor. But yes, a nuclear winter would probably be exaggerated. Several smaller catastrophes happened that resulted in what you're considering an extinction event, at least on the surface of many different races you consider dinosaurs today.
Are you willing to discuss what those other cataclysms were, or is that going into inter-reptilian politics?
Not quite. There are certain attacks from the airy fairies, so not necessarily a nuclear war, but they're triggering of certain events that then finally led to the extinction of many races on the surface on purpose, because they repopulate the planet with what you consider your most ancient ancestors. Many earthquakes were caused, seriously.
Speaking of our ancestors, you had mentioned that there were humans that lived together with dinosaurs before the extinction event. Were these like ET humanoids that moved to Earth, or were they just sort of humanoids that had evolved on Earth?
They evolved. Caveman level status, so to speak. More hairy than hairless monkeys.
This is another one of those things that a lot of people listening are going to think is batshit insane, because like we typically think of people only evolving a few tens of thousands of years ago, maybe a few millions of years ago. So wow, it's very awesome to think that there were our ancestors during the time of the dinosaurs. Why don't we find any fossils of them?
Some are found that they're not either interpreted in the correct sense, because your scientists very much go by a certain agenda, very often for unknown reasons. They just know what's supposed to be correct, and therefore they interpret things in a certain fashion that fits the current narrative, or very often things are also deliberately destroyed in order to keep a certain narrative going. It doesn't step outside your current functioning of your system. Nothing that's too much out of the box, so to speak. However, there are also several cases of evolution of your kind that have been reduced and upgraded all over again, as well as the dinosaurs. If you take the extraterrestrial influence into consideration, you realize that several of your so-called ancestors were completely wiped out before they were resettled, as well as our ancestors, those who are seen on a planet and you're known as dinosaurs. Many times your blood has to be reseeded.
So were these primitive humans also affected by like the asteroid and other events?
Certainly, yes. A lot of those were wiped out entirely and had to be readjusted or resettled.
I see. Okay, interesting. This might be a dumb question, but I'm sure the Empire must still have things like photographs and video recordings of the dinosaurs. I mean, obviously, like our people have a lot of photos and videos of wildlife. Do you think it would ever be possible that the Empire would ever be willing to share some of these with our race, the humans, simply for scientific curiosity?
You're having a very third-dimensional mindset, so yes, you're right about the intelligence level of your questioning. However, the idea is the information in our kind is stored much differently. It's more stored on a consciousness level. We did use crystals to a certain degree to store information, such as there's also information stored in your planet with those certain entities you're calling crystals. However, various races and species of both the Empire as well as the Airy Fairies have recordings from your own planet, yes, including those. And many of them have already been shown to members of your own kind in what you consider a video recording, because information can easily be translated from a higher level of technology. Not necessarily they could put a CD-ROM in your computer or something like this, yes, but the idea individuals could be shown what you consider a video on a screen on the ships of a higher evolved race or species, and this has already been done and will continue to be done to those that are open to read and get informed via those fashion. So it's not just a possibility, it has already happened numerous times.
Well, I'm guessing you're not going to bring that video down to show our scientists and paleontologists, but if you ever want to show me, I would love to go on your ship and check it out. But anyway.
Yes. We don't care what profession members of your kind have, as their light frequency and range, and they're able to interact with our kind in this fashion, and they should never come in contact with our species in this manner, and it's a topic that crops up. Yes, that's certainly an option that can at least technologically very easily be presented. However, you can access this information quite easily from your own consciousness. You can read your own Akashic records, but you're also aware when your kind are having an easier time interpreting information when it comes to your 5 senses instead of the 6th one, yes?
Right. Okay, well, to move on to my final question on this topic, for almost my entire childhood, my favorite book and movie was Jurassic Park. Like when I was a kid, I was looking forward to the future, like dreaming about this idea that, wow, one day, you know, we're going to have cloned dinosaurs on our planet, but obviously that never happened. And the book was based on an article published in 1985 predicting that in 30 years, scientists will be able to clone dinosaurs using DNA recovered from mosquitoes trapped in amber. And on the 30th anniversary, I messaged the gentleman who came up with this idea, and I was like, hey man, it's been 30 years. How come we don't have dinosaurs yet? And basically he said, like, well, our computing technology and genetic technology has certainly advanced more than he predicted in 1985, but we've since learned that DNA decays a lot faster than we expected back then. So basically this idea of cloning dinosaurs from DNA and mosquitoes won't work. But I'm sure you know where I'm going with this. I'm sure the Empire must still have copies of their DNA. So if I were to purchase an island off the west coast of Costa Rica and dedicate it to being a wildlife preserve for dinosaurs, do you think the Empire would be willing to give me some dinosaur DNA so that they can exist on the surface again?
This was highly, not just in a reptilian, but also with the Airy Fairy Federation, yes. Political, diplomatic affiliations would be affected by such an endeavor. So first and foremost, the surface of the planet would have to be altered, what you consider perhaps terraformed. As you're familiar with particular entities, dinosaurs exist in a certain frequency and genetic environment that was particularly suited for them, which has then since been changed in order to make it possible for more evolved members of a charismatic collective such as yours to exist more smoothly on the surface. An easier fashion than to breed from genetics would be, for example, to just physically relocate those that are inside the planet to the surface. That's something that would easily be achievable after a first contact scenario with what you consider inner Earth peoples, both of a reptilian and human nature, which could be a possibility in your not too distant future. Depends how your species decides to evolve. Once that would be achieved, something like a Jurassic Park could, for example, be largely populated on your planet. Perhaps an island such as those, or even a bigger region, could be chosen to be terraformed in a sense that would be habitable by a reptilian race or species, of course, preferably being overseen by other reptiles rather than Dinosaur.
I see. Yeah, I would definitely love to see that one day.
Yes, further volcanic eruptions, for example, would be also an option to alter a climate on your planet. If you, for example, could detonate a nuclear bomb inside a volcano.
So if we made the Earth habitable for dinosaurs, would that make it uninhabitable for humans?
To a large degree. At least for your current technological evolutionary state, it would be rather unbeneficial, to put it mildly. For fairness' sake, it would be difficult for a species to exist at a certain level, cohabitating, so to speak. But not just for the reasons of environmental catastrophes, also for energetic reasons. However, remember, search whenever you desire to create something inside your own consciousness for the reason why you wish to create it. That's usually the key to get either there or to circumvent it, whatever it is. Not that we are against the idea of populating the Earth again with dinosaurs, but in the current state it would trigger most likely a war over your planet once again. And that's something we're currently trying to avoid to a certain degree. Unless, of course, we are being forced or we are feeling forced or cornered by the airy fairies, but that's something currently still up for discussion and in negotiation, so to speak. However, creating such an individual island next to the culture of your planet of entirely different species that's to be evolving to a certain degree, it's unlikely currently, because of diplomatic affiliations. That being said, members of your so-called governance have already successfully put together cloned dinosaurs, but much different from what you might expect, different from a Jurassic Park scenario, more similar to what the ancient Egyptians did with various animal genetics, tinkering around. You could also travel to another timeline and bring entities from there into this one, but all of those actions would alter your current course to a great degree, and that's something the airy fairies would consider an interference that not be tolerated, and therefore it would trigger war.
Right. Yeah, I guess it's not very feasible at this point in time, but maybe one day I would possibly be able to see them inside the Earth. That would be very cool.
Yes, we are certain Westeros. We are excited about the share a certain interest in younger years, you calling such, for the research of those rather primitive members of our kind. However, this was obviously also adjustment, pre-channeling to attuning to our frequencies, yes? Whenever you're in those deep desires you consider emotional in your species, they are just a guiding post of where you're reaching with your consciousness.
Right. Okay, well, KALASK, thank you very much for answering all those questions on dinosaurs for me. You and Quetzal have taught our Hairless Monkey Collective more in the last half hour than we've learned in the last 200 years about dinosaurs. So thank you very much.
Certainly, it's also a topic of interest to us. After all, we see them there in the first place.
Right.